Welcome back to Book Talk with Cara. I am so excited because today I get to introduce you to my friend as she launches her debut novel, The Lies We Trade. But Kristen, before we start talking about your beautiful, amazing book, why don't you take a moment just to introduce yourself to everybody who's watching and listening to Book Talk and let them know a little bit about your journey to publication.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. I am a longtime listener, so I'm kind of like pinching myself a little bit for like being here and like being interviewed by you. So I am really looking forward to this. So my name is Kristine Delano. I spent 20 some odd years on Wall Street. I really loved my job and what I got to do and the opportunities it afforded. It was tough.
Yeah.
I retired in 2020 and I had lots of ideas. And I was like, hey, God, this is what I'm doing. Hope you're coming along. And he like just infused me with story. And I have been a mentor for women in kind of high powered position for a long time. It's like where my heart is. And so I know
Mhm.
a lot of stories and I know about what women have faced in the world of Wall Street. And I couldn't stop thinking about these characters. I didn't know they were characters. I didn't know what it would take to write a novel. I was a huge reader. I know you're a huge reader,
Yeah.
100 plus books a year, easy. I rewarded myself. Like I have a lot of nonfiction reading, reports and all of that. And I'd reward myself with like 2 chapters in my book if I get through all of this. So to the idea that I would be a novelist was absolutely not anywhere on my, imagination. And so it's been a really whirlwind over the last 5 years to find myself with a debut coming out, frankly.
Yeah, well, and it's so fun because I've gotten to see part of that journey through ACFW and getting to know you a little bit through American Christian fiction
Yes.
writers. And now to hold your book, The Lies We Trade, is so much fun. So congratulations again on that. And it's always fun when we get to kind of weave in part of who we are and our experience into the book. And you start with a bang. I mean, you start like right out of the first chapter putting people, planting them into this world. And in some ways, it reminded me a little bit of the morning show. Did the Jennifer
Mm.
Aniston, Reese
Yes.
Witherspoon kind of thing. But I mean, obviously, you're in a different field. It's not broadcast journalism, but it does kind of start in that context just a little bit before you take your main character off into just this completely different world. I mean, she's accomplished, she's got everything going for her, and then the wheels just come off, and they come off fast. And I mean, I teach about finance and accounting and all of that and law and ethics. And so I was just kind of like, oh, yep, been there, seen it from a distance because I have not been on Wall Street like you have. How much of your like real world experience did you get to kind of pour into this?
It it was an incredible experience to sit kind of in the seat and do the job. While I was working, I never knew that I probably should have been taking notes and like thinking about dialogue and thinking about all these things. But I think the book, it just it takes the pieces that are kind of the most juicy and the most interesting parts of what I did and what others did. And it's kind of an amalgamation of a lot of different personality traits and different settings that could have gone much worse in person, but maybe didn't. And I went there. So
Yeah.
to me, it was as realistic as I could make it, as authentic as I could make it, but with a whole lot of fun with being able to write a thriller. So to me, it's kind of both best of both worlds.
Yeah. Well, and in that way, it reminds me a lot of like a Lisa Scottoline novel,
Yes.
where, a lot of times she'll write about the law, but then she'll write a book that's set in a different context, but it has that same feel. And this one has that family dynamic
Mm.
going as well, where it's not just this heroine off doing her own thing. There's that family drama and there's a lot more going on. It's her life. So, how did you know which threads to pull in, because that can be tricky as an author to know how much to stay like on this one lane and when to add these other layers and threads. And you've got that complexity going.
Well, thank you. I think that for me, this is actually my fourth novel. So I wrote two for practice because
Mhm.
I don't do anything without a level of excellence of what I do. So I wrote the first one without knowing what I was doing. I wrote the second one having taken a lot of classes and seeking knowledge. I wrote the third one, was really proud of it, landed my agent with it, thought I might land a publisher because Tyndale was interested. And then they came back and said no. And then they said, and then so we're having to regroup. We have to go out on submission. I kind of thought I would have be able to miss that. But then a couple weeks later, she came back and said, well, what else does Kristine have? And
Mm.
she ended up signing me, Tyndale ended up signing me on two books on proposal. So the book wasn't written. There was kind of a few sentences of things. I had, some ideas and I had taken apart another idea. Anyway, so that was a little nerve-wracking because I had
Yeah.
watched people get signed in a debut and they had like a manuscript that they could start with, and I sort of like an idea. And so I think to your question of like, how did I figure out the layering of it
Yeah.
all? It was really a matter of I knew I wanted a multi-layered um, novel that would appeal to women that worked in this area. Like I have so many friends that work in and around Wall Street. I wanted them to be able to pick up the book and see themselves, but I
Mhm.
also wanted to appeal to women who like no matter what they do, there's this idea of like, where's my marriage going and what is my teen doing and how do I keep it all together and all of those sort of pieces I wanted
Yeah.
to appeal.
I love that. And just so everybody knows, that is not typical to get your debut basically on an idea. I still,
And I don't suggest it.
yeah,
It's a
yeah. I
little
mean,
nerve-wracking.
that's amazing though. That's amazing. And that's what I love is everybody's journey is different. And you had
Mhm.
done the work because you'd written
Yes.
3 books. So you'd proven you could complete a book, but to get your debut novel basically on here's an idea is amazing. I just love that. I love how God works. That's so, so cool. But if you're listening or watching, don't think that that's how it happens normally, because normally you have to have a complete manuscript anymore. So when you're thinking about that, what was the first thing that came to you, the character or the theme? Was it your heroine? Because it's really her story. She's like the driver of this whole Odyssey uh, chaos that's happening in the book. Or was it like a theme?
It's definitely Meredith. She came to me first. She was sort of interesting and insightful. I still remember, I live in Maine. I took her to Hannaford with me and we went grocery shopping. And I just listened to her. I would like look at different things. We'd look at people. We'd try to like eavesdrop on conversations, and I would get a sense of like what she liked, what she didn't, how interested she was in other people, where she thought her life was going, what her concerns were, and we sort of did it in the grocery store. And after that, I, sort of sat with her a little bit, interviewed her a bit, and then this idea kind of formed in me. I love teams. Like all of my career has been pulling together teams. Um, and in the beginning, I wasn't very good at it. I didn't know what it meant to have a high performing team. But in order to be successful in the kind of work that I did, you had to work within teams. So my idea was, what would happen if she showed up to work one day and not only did her second in command, her most trusted person on her team, if she was fired, but that she'd have to file a restraining order against her. Like,
Yeah.
what would that feel like? What kind of betrayal would that feel like? How would she be able to operate? What other tensions could I throw on her at the same time? But what would have happened? And so I just kind of started with that question. And I felt like the entire sort of novel kind of ended up falling into place. A little bit of the backstory, but a lot more of like what the journey would be for her to like tease out both her marriage and her career at the same time.
I love that. And I'm picturing walking around the grocery store with your character and going, what do you think of this? Because
I
that's
know.
not how I do things. I'm too left-brained. I'm just
Mm,
too much of the attorney. That's always felt weird to me. And so I have to use other tools, but I
mm.
can imagine you doing that. I can so totally just see you being like, okay, Meredith, so
Yes,
what do you think of that over there?
I know.
And it's
I
so
know.
funny because you're so Wall Street, and yet
Ah,
you're still like, so what do you
yes.
think?
And that's where I really feel like God just like absolutely turned me on to what it is that he wants me to do. I, like I said, just never would have expected it.
Yeah, that's so fun. So as you think about this, and maybe this, I don't even know if this is a good question for you because of how the book came to be, but if you started with just an idea, and I've had a couple books where like the proposal was a couple paragraphs and then, some sample chapters, um, or like The Vanished, it literally was a paragraph because it was supposed to be book two. And so when you're doing a proposal and it's three books, and the first book, you have like the 2-page synopsis and sample chapters, and then and here's what book two and three could look like. And maybe they're a paragraph, maybe they're two paragraphs. And then book two became book one because of things. And I had to write that book in 2 months.
Ouch.
Yeah, less than
Ouch.
2 months. And I didn't even
Ouch.
have a hero. And I'm like,
Oh.
okay.
I
And
think
that
you're
was the
giving
end of
me
the season.
hives.
Yeah. And so,
Sweating.
and that's when that I'm always like, God showed up
Yeah.
big time for that book.
Yes.
I love it. And
I love it too.
it's so cool when it's just such a cool book. I love it. But I still look at that and I'm like, I don't know how I did that other than God showed up because I literally, it was October like 8th and the book was due December 15th. And I got an extension to
Mm.
January 15th. But y'all have to understand that was the end of the semester
Ouch.
too.
Yes.
And I didn't have
And the
anything.
holidays,
Yeah,
Christmas,
yeah, yeah.
all
I
of
mean, like
that.
life, like all of life. And I didn't even have a hero. And by January 1st or 15th, I had a full book. Um, and not much changed
Mm.
between what I turned in and what readers read. A couple things, like little tweaks, because there's always stuff that changes. But when I look at that, I'm like, but not a lot changed. It wasn't like stuff had to come out a little. I mean, there was more on that
Hmm.
one, maybe. But at the same time, my editor and I were like, considering there was nothing, and then 8 weeks later, there was 100,000 words,
Oh,
there wasn't much that in the realm of things had to change. So when you're thinking about,
so impressive.
well, fortunately that was
Yes.
book 41 or something like
Yeah.
that. So I was like, I've done this before. I know it can happen. I don't know how, but I know it can happen. But when you think about the lies we trade, when you think of your first draft and you think of what readers are going to read, is there anything major that changed or you were like, oh, I can't believe I put that in because it came out, but if it were a
Oh,
deleted
yes.
scene, readers would be like, oh, that's an interesting choice, but it's kind of fun to see in the deleted scenes of the book.
Yeah. So I knew the twists pretty early. I knew kind of the fraud. I knew what motivated all of what was creating the turmoil in Meredith's life, but I had no idea who. So I
Oh,
had no idea who the bad guy was.
yeah, I've done that
And
before. And you're like,
and so yeah,
kind of an important detail.
yeah. And I'm a huge plotter. So huge. So once we've gone to Hannaford, once we've like figured out some of those big things, I I love plotting. And people I have a lot of friends who are like, "Oh, that's so boring then because now you know where it's going." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Oh no. I
but
have
it makes the writing so
so
much
many.
easier.
It's so interlaced. I don't even know how I would do it if I just decided to look at a blank page every day. So I'm in Scrivener. I'm very well plotted. I know where things are going, but I left open the idea of like what actually happened. Like, what is the undercurrent of sort of evil and fraud and all of that? But I had so many characters that it could be. And
Yeah.
they were all so fun. And it just meant every one of them had sort of their good and their bad. And so the second draft was like doing that shift, was like
Mhm.
putting in all those, sort of like hints and clues. And so you can actually put it together if you read it in a certain way. But otherwise, it's kind of a really fun read all the way up until the moment that the person is revealed, it's really fun
Yeah,
to try to figure it out.
I love that. I always say Stars in the Night was my World War II legal
Yes.
suspense, Murder on the Orient Express kind of book. Literally, a lot of it happens on a train. And I'll never forget being in Panera and calling Robin Carroll is her pen name as I'm at like 20 pages from the end. And I'm like, I don't know who did it. And I'm having this conversation. I don't know who murdered them. I don't know who the murderer is. And I'm 20 pages from the end. And we're sitting there, on the phone talking through it. And I'm like, I did. And it was all laid out, but I was like, I didn't. And, but it was like, I think it's this person. Could it really be this person? Should it be somebody else? I think, da, da, da. And it was who I thought it was. But I just, that panic of, oh
Mm.
my gosh, I've got to write like the last two chapters and I don't know who did it. And yeah, I mean, I did, but it was just
Yes.
that momentary, like, oh, I've got to
Right.
write it out now. And I tend to be a plotter, but anymore, I don't have time to be a plotter, but man, it's so much easier when I am.
Yes. Well, and you know what you're doing. You've got 40 plus books under you. You know, I am still figuring this whole thing out, and
Yeah.
I really, really love the creative process. So I love
Yeah.
that I get to spend this amount of time doing the kind of research I love to do. I'm on the SEC Securities and Exchange Commission
Yeah.
website all the time because they write plain letter, kind of press releases on all the bad stuff that they investigate. I'm like, there is so much fodder in here for great
Yeah.
stories. And so I love that I get to kind of press into to all that work.
That's so fun. So fun. Okay, so now let's talk about your writing process a little bit now that we've kind of taken that little detour over there. So, do you write in silence or with music?
My brain is so busy. It wouldn't even matter if I had music on. I would never even hear it.
Yeah.
My characters are noisy. Everything is noisy to me. So no, I often put on some hype music for myself, more for like these kind of interviews. Like I actually like blared some Taylor Swift before
Love it.
our time together because I needed a beat. I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna come in with some energy. But no, I am definitely a silence. My brain gets enough airtime and we just go with it.
Okay, so I got to know what's your Taylor Swift type song right now?
I'm embarrassed to say what it
No,
is.
I want to know. You got to tell me.
Oh, it's such a bad song.
So
I mean,
I,
it's a good song. It's just one of those things where it kind of it came to me because the title is so what I think about all the time. And then the song itself is just it's such a cool like starts one way and then completely changes at the end.
yeah,
So it's blank space. So
yeah,
it's just a fun hype
it
song. And
is.
it's just this idea of like, you tell me I'm like this and I'm actually like this. So to me, for like being a suspense sort of thriller writer, it's kind of a cool song to get in the groove. But
It is,
yeah.
absolutely. I actually created a case study for an intellectual property course I teach using her copyright strategy because I was like, you
Ah,
can learn so much
yes.
from her. And there's like a 4 minute
Incredible.
soundbite in her podcast episode with the Kelsey brothers that I was like, she just taught copyright law and strategy better than anybody I've ever heard in 4 minutes. She gave you the why. This is why it
Yeah.
matters, y'all. And so I played it in my class because I'm like, okay, I don't need to say anything. She just said it all. So
Right. So
regardless of what you
brilliant.
think, she's a brilliant businesswoman.
Absolutely.
So on that though, back to the music or non-music, do you, and you're a plotter, you like
Yes.
to know where things are going, which the number of people who are like, I'm a pantser. I just, if I knew, and I'm in the middle because I've had to write both ways. So it's easier if you plot. It's so much easier
Yes.
if you plot. Um, but do you have a snack that you eat while you're writing, or are you one of those clean freaks who
No.
you're like, no, nothing?
No, I don't have any food at my desk normally. I do this weird thing though, where if I'm in the midst of writing a book, I do a lot of research, a lot of analysis. Even though I know the space so well,
Yeah.
I'm also just, I hold myself to an extremely high standard that like anyone who knows the space even better than I would, maybe would see that I would skip a few steps, but I wouldn't get the steps wrong. And so it's like really important to me. So my desk gets pretty just kind of
Yeah.
layered with stuff, and I don't clean it off until I finish a draft. So I wouldn't want to bring any food to my area that I work in because I think it might get lost.
Yeah. Well, I do the same thing, and the chaos grows as the
Yes,
deeper I get in, because I'm just like, there's all this stuff, and because even though people are like, well, you're an attorney, why do you need to research it? I'm like, because the law changes, or the
exactly.
jurisdiction has changed, and I care. Like my respect for an author goes down immediately if I know that they didn't care about the details, because I'm
Mm,
like, what else did you shortcut? And so
right.
I will spend so much time on the research. Um, and then
Yes.
there's all those rabbit trails that I'm like,
Yes.
oh, that's interesting. And so
Yes.
pulling myself back and then learning how to organize it so I don't have to repeat the research because I couldn't find it. Or I'm like, I know I researched that, but where did it go?
Oh,
And so
right.
learning how to
Yes.
organize all that, so
And
important.
Scrivener's so good at, for me, for being able to hold that all in files. Like it is extremely well documented, my books. I think I also have to just do a big shout out to my editor at Tyndale. Like editors, they spot gobbledygook, Wall Street gobbledygook so easily. So they are like, Kristine, we need a metaphor, we need we need something else to explain this. And it's really, really wonderful. They have such an eye for sort of authenticity, but also making sure I don't go off the rails with stuff
Yeah.
that's like not interesting to anyone but me. So it's been really a pleasure to be able to write with that kind of, backup, but also not everything has to go on the page.
Yes. And finding that balance so that it's
Mm.
authentic without being like, okay, now I could go be a trader myself.
Right. Right.
Because if I wanted to do that, I would have gone to New York.
Right.
And I like to learn
Exactly.
about it. I like to be authentic enough that I feel like, ooh, I learned something without
Yes.
getting a PhD in it.
Yes. And you can understand the tensions of what she's
Yeah.
in when you understand like the level in which someone is doing their job and the amount of money that's on the line. You want to make sure that those pieces are so through so that for me, I don't need necessarily to have a dead body in order to feel like the tension of like how important some of the
Yeah.
decisions that she's having to make or some of the meetings that she's having to get out of because people care so deeply and are so greedy. Yeah.
Yeah. Because in your situation, I mean, Wall Street's dealing with billions,
Yes.
trillions of dollars.
Yes.
And so the stakes are so high. Although I do like killing people.
Yeah.
That raises the stakes, but you don't have to do that because the stakes are already immense.
Yes.
There's,
And I have a lot of writing friends that are like that. Whenever I come up with something, I'm like, oh, I'm not sure how to solve that. They're like, just kill him. I'm like, I
yeah,
can't kill him.
but you could.
But
You
I
could.
could.
That would
I
up the
could.
stakes. It's a
Yes,
good
I
way to do
could.
it.
I
So,
could.
so yeah, don't come brainstorm with me because I'll be like, yeah, just knock him off. Knock him off.
Yes, I hear it a lot.
So, okay, so a couple last questions. Can you name three authors who inspired your writing?
Mm. Well, you mentioned one, Lisa Scottoline. She's amazing.
Yep.
And then Sally Hepworth. She is an
Mm,
Australian thriller writer. She also writes kind of that multi-layered sort of family dramas that are just so good. She's also extremely funny person, and so I love following her online. And then the third is Samantha Bailey. She wrote, I think her debut was like Look Out for Her, which was just, she's a Canadian thriller writer. It was so good. It was so interesting. And then I've watched her career just like skyrocket with these just amazing bestsellers. And she was the one person I sort of reached out to cold called and asked if she would endorse my book, and she said yes. And that
oh,
was
that's
just
amazing.
like this huge thing to me. She had no idea who I was. I'd followed her and, just been in sort of the aura of what she was doing. But yeah, she's an extremely nice person and was so gracious and wrote this wonderful endorsement for me. So,
Oh, I love that.
yes, I'm definitely influenced by sort of the more secular side of
Yeah.
thriller writing. I don't write the romance as
Mhm.
much, and that seems to be a lot more. I like to read it. I'm just not as influenced for my writing.
Yeah. No, I love that. And then what was your favorite book as a child?
Oh gosh. My favorite book as a child. Can I can I shift the question on you and
Yeah,
say
absolutely.
what was the book that influenced me the most?
Sure.
I think now looking back, I don't know at the time how much it had an impact on me, but Flowers in the Attic, V.C. Andrews. I
Okay.
read it way too early, I think, but it was the first time that I truly understood how a book could transport you into
Mm,
another place. It scared me, it like thrilled me, and it completely made everything else in my world sort of go away. I just remember going back to that novel. I think I probably read it a few times before my mother even found out that I I was reading it
yeah.
and probably took it away. But that book, I think to this day has influenced me in the power of story and the power of sort of coming into like the emotional forward aspect of kind of tension and thrilling writing. So yeah, that
Oh,
was
I love that.
I don't know it's my favorite, but it was absolutely the most influential.
I love that. And that's a great way to kind of shift the question. So, as we come to the conclusion, where can readers learn more about you
Mm.
and the lies we trade?
Well, I have a website, KristineDelano.com. So I spell my name with a K, and with an E. It's a little bit odd. I don't know why. And then Delano, like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, KristineDelano.com. There's lots of information on there about. I have a free read, which is super fun. It has an audio version as well, because I wanted to see what it was like to make an audiobook. And so I did that with a great actress from Broadway. And yeah, and then I would love for people to check out the book. I am excited. It's available everywhere you can get books right now as a pre-order, and I know pre-orders make a really big difference to debuts and probably everybody.
Yes.
I'm always so thankful. People message me a lot saying that they pre-ordered the book, and that's just really exciting. And I
Yeah,
thank readers so much for sort of taking a taking a chance on a debut.
I love that. Well, congratulations again. And it was so fun to connect with you and talk about your book. Thanks again.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been so fun.